welcome to the Painted Bride Quarterly's Slush Pile. This is a space in which we discuss submissions to the magazine. And basically we have an editorial meeting and we record it and let you listen in. And that's where the fun begins. So we've been doing this for quite a while now, almost 3 years. And Slushies, we would love your feedback. We're so glad that you're here and listening. And we're also very glad that we're going to read some poems by Hillary Adler today. But first, we should introduce ourselves. So it's still lockdown. I'm always the one that goes, we don't know when this will be released, but we don't know when we'll be released. So chances are fair to Midland that we'll still be on quarantine when this gets released. Who knows? So I'm Kathleen Volk, and I'm in my 3rd floor office where I basically live now. And it's okay, but it's okay. And wow, yet again, we're all in America, which is a shocker. And we're fairly close to each other, really. We're all within a 2-hour rock's throw. Oh no, not Marion. She's like you have to throw a pretty mean rock. I guess I was so excited that you're in our time zone. Hi, Marion.
Hi. You know what? I love that you're throwing rocks at me. You know, it's a perfect image for 2020. Thank you, 2020. Although you Slushies will probably hear this.
Airplanes. That's the only thing I ever throw at you.
It's by the time this comes out, it'll be 2021. So happy New Year, Slushies. We love you. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. This is Marion, and I'm going to bounce it over to Samantha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha. I am in Philadelphia, and I am currently an MFA student at Johns Hopkins University, and we are closed for the pandemic, and we will be in the spring too. So when you hear this, we will also be closed. I'm going to go to New York.
Hi. Yeah, it's Jason Schneiderman. I'm here in New York, in Brooklyn on sabbatical. Yeah, we just lost indoor dining, which is fine because that was never safe. There was no reason for that to have happened. The outdoor dining is perfectly good.
Congratulations on the sabbatical, right in the middle.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's almost, I mean, I'm almost at the end of the first semester and I feel like I have not lived up to my promise, but I have like 6 things that I've started. And so if I can finish like 3 of them, I'll be good.
That's a wonderful way to think that sabbatical is a place of growing things.
I have 1 more semester. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of lockdown. Although I really do have to figure out how to get, you can, like, I was hamstrung by not having library access.
Oh yeah.
I am very deeply dependent on libraries, both as like meditative spaces and as points of access. And I just, and anyone who tells you can find anything you need online is a liar.
Oh. Well, listen, we have one more person on the call. We need to introduce one more person on the call. Hello, Addison.
Hello.
Addison.
How are you?
Where are you, Addison?
I am in West Philadelphia in my drafty house. And yeah.
Drafts.
Apropos, end of the semester. Not that that'll mean anything when we post this podcast, but it's being recorded at the end of the semester, which is such an epic time for most of us in education. So thank you.
Is everyone's experience of the seasons just like completely wackadoodly? Like I can't adjust to the fact it seems somehow wrong that it's cold. It's December. It's supposed to be cold. But I'm like, oh, it's very odd that it's cold in the middle of summer.
It was like 60 degrees yesterday, so I don't know.
I was telling people I'm still not used to that. You know, it was 62 yesterday, and I think it's 42 today. And growing up in Pittsburgh, we do not have weather change that quickly. It just doesn't happen. I didn't realize it was fall until after Thanksgiving.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm with you, Jason. I don't know what it is, but we did get a tree this weekend.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I guess it must be Christmas.
Well, you know,
there's a tree in my living room.
Yay! Speaking of,
do they know it's Christmas time at all?
I'm like,
you know that there's a tree along with everything else in 2020. Side note: tree shortage.
Oh, Really?
Yep.
I see
Yep.
plenty in
Yep.
West Philadelphia.
Really? No, I
Right
mean,
on
I
the
heard
street, yeah.
nationally, and people decorated earlier because, and there people are saying because of the pandemic. Yeah, apparently. I mean, maybe you are seeing a lot, Addison, but I, literally the one closest to me, just this weekend, there's maybe 4 trees in the lot, and it had been, like they usually look. I drove by yesterday. I was like, what? Like in the evening. It must have been the biggest weekend to do it since the weather was nice and like 2 weeks ahead of time, probably tree weekend.
Well, you know what? I think Tree Weekend is a great turn into talking about poetry, right? Like everybody's out looking for something to celebrate, and here we are turning to poetry, which is a permanent celebration.
Right. Poets will keep poeting for sure.
Poets keep poeting, even in a tree shortage.
Even in a tree shortage, even in 2020. And right, so we're gonna roll right into some poems by Hillary Adler and Slushies. So you can go on the website and read along, read in advance, pause this, go read it, whatever you want. So thank you, Hillary Adler, and I think let's have Jason start us off with this first.
All right. We must be animals. We must be animals. I just walked by 2 feral cats having sex next to 4 bags of trash, and I was jealous. I want to be feral with someone just for once in my life and not care who sees me, or even just get hot and naked into bed or out of bed with anybody anywhere to be desired and hear dirty words in my ear, so tired of these lesbians who just want to make love and sing lullabies. I want the weight of a man, but not the look, feel, sound of a man. Is it too soon to assume maybe I just want to fuck myself? Not masturbation, I mean myself beneath me, because I only know what I want. How far does that narcissism go? I've swiped left and left and left on Tinder because the girlfriend still can't decide if she actually wants to be the girlfriend or not. I knew she was indecisive when she spent 2 weeks trying to decide between mustard yellow or sun yellow for her West Elm lounge chair. She went with mustard yellow, and the first word out of her mouth when it was delivered was, ugh, and I should have gone with the other yellow. So honestly, IDK, really, I don't even know. But also, like, which yellow am I? And when can I be as lucky as those cats?
Oh, I would just snap at you if I had fully functional thumbs.
I love the cats.
Your ability to write on your phone, and I forgot that you can't give snaps.
Yeah, Slushies, I had a little accident, but this poem is astounding.
Learn to snap with your, what do I do? My middle finger and my pinky.
Why did you learn to do that?
I don't know. Like a nervous tick, and then I realized, oh, this is pretty loud.
I think that's pretty rare. Slushies, if you can do that, send videos.
Your pinky has to hit the ring finger to make it. Never mind.
That's actually pretty profound. All right, so the occasion for this poem, right, is pretty fabulous. The speaker is walking, sees 2 feral cats stooping, and it spirals into a contemplation of the girlfriend's ambivalence / reluctance / incapacity to root for her own damn self in a decision-making moment.
Yeah.
Wow. We must be animals. Thoughts?
I love the way that it kind of starts. Like I'm used to poems that sort of like warm you up and then get into the sex. And I love that it kind of starts with the sex and then gets to that story about the couch. And you're like, oh my God, I hate this person so much. Right? Like where you're like, really, you spent like, really, we're going to talk about the sun yellow versus the mustard yellow. That's really what matters here. I love the way that it sort of has that motion through all of like, this desire and this kind of animality, and then sort of it gets to this fantastic story about like how annoying humans can be.
I really do love the sort of tumble of the last couple of lines there too. And I should have got the other yellow. So honestly, IDK, really, I don't know. right? So that doubleness of I don't know, but also I like which yellow am I, and when can I be as lucky as those cats, right? It's just so like the conversational tone and the frustration in repetition is really smart, really.
Right. Well, the opposition of feral cats next to trash bags and a West Elm lounge chair. Like that is enough to know that she's never going to have that kind of sex if she stays with this girlfriend. Right?
Yeah.
Jason, how was it to read? Great, because the line breaks are really like they're purposeful, but that enjambment is like pulls you.
Well, I'll actually say because I've read this a few times in my head, and actually making my mouth do what happens in my head was really hard. Because I think that when you read it, you hear that voice so clearly, and the enjambments make it so conversational, and you're so aware of kind of like the exact specificity of the tone that like when I was like, oh, but my voice is the wrong voice. like there's this way in which I think that and Slushies, go ahead and read the poem and like kind of hear it in your own brain. Because I feel like the voice that gets generated in your brain by what's going on with the cross-cutting at the line with the syntax, the ampersands, and the sort of like conversational texty sort of like intonation that comes and goes and like picks up and starts off is so clear. And then when you try to say it out loud, it was actually like I felt like I didn't do it quite justice.
I love that phrase, texty intonations, because of the 85 puns that makes, right? Because like reading on the page, but also texting, like the syntax of the text, right? Like in your phone text and this text, brilliant, right? Because it really does trouble the sonic orality and like graphic quality of this poem.
I thought you did an amazing job with the two phrases that are in quotes.
Make love and the girlfriend.
You do this.
Make love.
Girlfriend, your voice, you did a great voice inflection.
I also feel like there's something to how the poem uses like the text abbreviations that is allowing her to be feral in a way, because I feel like there's so many like alarmist articles and some of them I agree with about like the downfall of like language and what like texting and stuff is doing to us. And there's something that could be said for like the messy, like animalistic way of like cutting across the communication in like the most simplest direct forms that we all understand, that like is her like being a bit feral actually. So I really like that. And I read a short story recently by Brian Washington in the New Yorker, and he had like emojis in it, and that was the first time I've seen that. So I feel like I'm always looking for poems that like are using the way we like text and talk now in their work like successfully. And I think this does it.
Yeah. And you know what was interesting too, Jason? You said for DC, you said the word because, but then you said IDK. And then it's true. Like IDK is one of those words like people say aloud IDK. They say LOL, right?
Yeah. I remember the first time my brother called me when he was in college in the early 2000s, late 90s, and he called me and he was like, I was at a party and someone said BRB and walked away and came back. And I was like, but where, what?
That's normal now, though.
Yeah, now it's normal.
Yeah.
Now everyone, like speaks in these, I mean, TLDR is like the downfall of Western civilization, but it's such a good code for, like what's wrong with everything.
I remember thinking I will never say LOL or IDK, and I do say both of them. Not a lot, mind you, but every now and then they slip out.
But you're right. I didn't even realize when I read it, I actually didn't even realize that I was making BC into because.
Yeah.
But then with IDK, I like made a conscious choice.
Yeah.
Huh. But I also like that there's a kind of because like a lot of times like I said, like TLDR is the downfall of civilization, which is too long didn't read, right? Like it's some way of sort of like making it okay that you want to stay ignorant. Sorry, guys, I just can't read Marx. I'll remain ignorant of economics. Too long. But like, I feel like this is making me smarter. Like the way that the intonations kind of let the bouncing around happen kind of came to like better conclusions. Like I felt like it was a text thread that was like insightful because it was coming through in these kinds of structures of phrasing.
Yeah, and like the repetition, I really liked left and left and left, because we can like be in that moment of like basically like no, 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 and that's like way more interesting and like a use of space than like the word because spelled out, or I don't know, or whatever.
And also like the structure of intimacy and the structure of meeting. I mean, like in the 90s, there was no Tinder. Like swipe left would have meant nothing. And like having the option of just kind of like the sort of like the catalog nature of kind of shopping for people that, you know, like you're going, it's like the Sears catalog. Like, I don't like that shirt and I don't like that shirt and I don't like that shirt. Like, you know, is also really new. I mean, you know, this really is something that we haven't quite determined our etiquette on, because it's still kind of, but we know we don't want the girlfriend who hates the wrong yellow couch.
It reminds me of like Cher and Clueless. You guys remember when she's like trying to pick her clothing out? And like my friend and I in elementary school would like draw little outfits and like try to do that because we were like poor and didn't have a computer and wanted to be her.
I do remember that scene. But it was also one of those things where like on television, computers never work the way actual computers do. Like on CSI, where they're like enlarge, enhance resolution, and you're like, that's not how computers work at all. But you know,
I was just watching a TV show that made fun of that trope, where it's like, you know, like on the cop shows, they have it in their labs. You just go enhance, zoom in, enhance. And the guys are like, so you want us to do some police officer magic with our computers that you saw on TV? And he's like, yeah. All right, give us 2 hours. It was like the fake Geek Squad guys in the Preacher TV show.
Can you guys say you think this whole thing is a text to somebody? Because of that immediacy of that first line, I just walked by 2 feral cats. Like,
you know, I mean, I don't think it's actually. I think that the intonations, and the sort of the shortness of the syntax and the way that the syntax flows into each other. I mean, in a certain way, it's like, you know, I mean, people have been like, wasn't like really, and like, you know, the BC instead of because and the ampersands, like that goes back to like the 20s and sort of gives you a sense of like handwriting. But here it did give me a sense of texting. It did give me a sense of like, you know, like just sort of working things, like the way it accumulates felt like getting a lot of texts. But I don't think there's actually like a speaker and a texter and a receiver.
Right. Well, right. I mean, and I think what adds to texting is there's no punctuation, right? There's shortcuts. There's no punctuation. A lot of rules aren't followed, but we would accept all of this, right, in a text.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's part of the charm of the poem too, is like, you know, as Jason points out, the ampersand is really old, right? But IDK, right, or the way BC is used is so like sort of new and technologically driven. So there's something really beautiful and witty around the way the syntax of the poem is being inflected by this new, like the text communicating. So like the syntax of one media form is like sort of backflowing into this poem, so that the sentence is actually pointing outward to texting vice versa, without it being like a text. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not imitating a text dialogue, right? Which is just so super cool, right? Like I was just thinking, like, you know, words like Xerox, for instance, like we just use that to stand in for photocopy. I think there might be a grammatical name for that, but it escapes me right now.
Facsimile?
Well,
no, a word for those words, like Kleenex for
oh
yeah, that.
Yeah.
But yes, right? So like why we don't say facsimile, or why don't we say photocopy? What we say is Xerox, right? so that the brand stands in for, and it becomes a shortcut. Like maybe it's a kind of metonym or syntactical, I don't know, right? But what happens is the language changes, right? So that what I love about this poem is it's capturing that slide. It's like, it's capturing the way these abbreviations are sliding into the language and impacting our syntax. So
eponym.
Say it again, eponym. Oh. Nice, thank you. Eponym.
Well, who says hand me a tissue? But anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
do you want to vote? Do you want to go on to, we have 2 more.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Who wants to call it? Someone has to count down from 3.
I think I can manage. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Well, looky there. It's unanimous. I love when that happens.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Yes, too. We must be animals. Great.
You know, I always think that during football, maybe I'm going to say this and season myself as well, what season we're in. But when football players sack the quarterback, they just go animal, like after. You know what I mean? They get up from it. They're like, rah! Going animal. Everybody probably needs to every now and then. Okay, are we going to do letter?
Let's get carried away.
Let's do it.
Yeah. No, you have to sort of get carried away. You have to like enter that zone. I don't watch football, but I mean, I actually do you know my football story? That like because I had to learn the rules of football when I was in a gym class, and we actually got tested on the rules of football. And so we went to this Super Bowl party, and it was the year when the Patriots were 2 overtimes with the tie. And I was kind of explaining to my husband what was going on with the downs. And I was like, so we seem to have walked in, and we like walked into the party like as the 4th quarter was concluding into a tie with like the multiple overtimes. And I was like, this is definitely the most exciting game of football in at least the last 10 years, if not the history of football. And the fact that we feel nothing suggests that we are not going to ever become football fans. Like if there was a moment to get excited about football, this is it. And we just, nothing.
Well, Pittsburgh.
Joe can cut that story out. That was a terrible story.
Marion, write down a timestamp. There.
Okay.
It was okay. I think we're gonna do letter to Erika from a bench on Christopher Street. Yeah.
Can I volunteer Marion?
Oh, I've looked. Okay, yes, but I do want to defend your football story because there's something really true about how, you know, Kathy's story about going wild at a quarterback sack makes you just go like bonkers, right? That sort of ecstasy sort of matches up with the frustrations in that poem, right? And then knowing, you know, is the thing you're trying to love going to love you back? I don't know, man. I don't know. That's not the heart of fandom. I don't know what is.
And should you even love that person though, too? That was in there, right?
Right. Okay. All right. So Slushies is the title, has a reference, a pop cultural references I'm sure you'll fully recognize, which is the Magic 8-Ball, which I consult regularly for all advice. Wait, are we not doing that one?
We're gonna do the letter to Erika.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. All right, we're doing the letter to Erika. So ignore everything I just said about.
But you still need the pop cultural reference.
There will be other pop cultural references.
There will be
which is
so many pop cultural references. Perhaps eponyms. We'll see. Right? We'll see. Letter to Erika. Letter to Erika. From a bench on St. Christopher Street. Oh, New York. I'm hungover today, Erika. This big gay ice cream isn't doing anything good for me, really. I've gagged twice, but spent $10 on a single cone. So why throw it away? What a waste. It's pride in the city, and there's glitter everywhere on the streets, even in my bra. There was no pride growing up in the mountains, and I lost my virginity in the backseat of a red two-door Eclipse on the side of an overgrown country road in the middle of July to a man who later came out as gay, and so did I. We used each other's bodies to make a statement for our neighbors who posted marriage is for
man side and women's side.
Man side and women's side. in their yards. This was before Obama was president and before I moved to New York with a man and had 2 miscarriages, and before I finally decided to give up the charade, and before Donald Trump too, and before I drove to Virginia for a wedding and stayed in a Front Royal B&B with my girlfriend, where we sat by a fire with a bottle of Chateau Morizette wine and walked the bridle path towards the AT. I was surprised when nobody said anything about our hands or assumed we were best friends. The other night during summer solstice, the sun set over the skyline, and while tourists grabbed Manhattan henge snaps, while we had sex on a rooftop in Queens, after too many cocktails and half a Molly, the man I lost babies with checked into a Blue Ridge Behavioral Center for his suburban addiction to heroin, and still I was the happiest I'd been in years.
Nice, thank you.
That made me want to read it like Charles Bukowski.
How would Charles Bukowski read it?
That was my best attempt at a Charles Bukowski.
And it is Charles Bukowski.
That was
Sorry,
it.
I should have recognized the Bukowski imitation.
But hey, hold on. Now I'll puke.
Do you want to sexually harass someone too? Do you want to make it
let me be giving some sexual harassment and also barf at you. But not that I want to puke at this poem. That's a little magic trick of a prose poem, right? Really quite a little magic trick.
Yeah, so Slushies, this one, when you go look at it, you'll see it's a big dense block.
Yeah.
And it's a big dense block.
It is.
And there's no punctuation.
No punctuation.
No.
And I think that's kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, except for like, there's no punctuation, but it really highlights the marks on the page, so to speak, with the male and ampersand female signs, right? Like there's something about the way those images flow into the sentences that just reminds you looking at like ink on a page, you know?
And then saying that out loud, I thought it was really interesting that you said male sign and female signs. When it's a male sign and a female sign signs is how I was like anticipating you to say it.
Yeah.
Just for the fun of repeating signs yet again.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a weird moment, full confession, right? I'm looking at the symbols and panicked over which was which, right? I was like, male and female, male, ampersand signs, right? Because Slushies, we don't really talk about this, but you know, we rarely practice the elocution before we
rarely. Do we ever? I never have. Maybe we should have rehearsals.
Look, I was just trying to cover and create the illusion of practice, right? But we read these poems and bring them in, but we don't speak them until this moment. And that can put a lot of pressure on people. Just a little, you know, performance anxiety confession, just saying. Cheers. Continue on with that conversation.
What are Manhattan henge snaps?
Oh, that's when the sun sets over Jersey and shoots across Manhattan such that it is a perfectly aligned sunset and people have to catch it with their cameras for good luck. It's a sort of solstice thing.
It happens twice a year. Manhattan henge is when the sunset lines up with the grid of Manhattan, which is slightly, it's not exactly north-south. It's like a little bit tilted to the west. It's like a little a little northeast.
Side note, I'm in a town called Kannapolis. It's an old mill town, and it was sort of like lined up in a very careful way that every once in a while we get Kannapolis henge. I'm trying to make that happen. I don't know that people will buy into it, but
good luck. It's a worthy cause. I think you should make t-shirts.
Coffee mugs too.
But I like this one being a letter. I mean, I like the way that it sort of like has an intended audience, that we sort of sit in this position of being Erika and kind of getting this stream of consciousness.
But it is such a hungover, like rolling crest of connections. Like I can feel that hangover. Maybe that's why I was thinking about Bukowski too, right? The sort of like existential grind of, you know, trying to fix a giant hangover. There's glitter in your bra and the ice cream cone is not working.
But the ice cream cone was too expensive to throw
$10
out.
ice cream cone.
I love that. I love the $10 ice cream cone. It's like really disgusting that you paid $10 for it. So
I love that we've been there together.
Right? And it's really nice cream.
At least once.
We have. I'm gonna put a link into the show notes. Branding.
Maybe we can get Big Gay Ice Cream to sponsor us. Painted Bride Slush Bar, brought to you by Big Gay Ice Cream. It's big and gay and ice cream.
I was thinking maybe they could come up with an item called the slushie for hangovers.
Oh, there we
Thank
go.
you.
That's a really good.
Thank you, Hillary.
You could put some powder, put some, all you really need is caffeine and Tylenol and a multivitamin.
No caffeine.
Yes.
No, just aspirin and some bananas and something else.
Right.
Yeah, the banana is important for the potassium.
That sounds like
and some like peanut butter for like fat.
Sounds like a yogurt bar where you get to pick your toppings. Like I'll have a little aspirin.
Have a hangover.
A little Molly.
A little Molly with that.
Very much a Wawa turkey hoagie right on top.
Right. So yes, so Hillary's got us thinking hangover remedies, but what do we think about this as a poem?
Well, I like stories. I like prose. I like the density of this.
There's so much information and it comes in such a kind of like water slide, but you're never lost. Like we've talked about so many poems where, there's this kind of like this stream of consciousness and we're like kind of ping-ponging everyone. We're like, what? And in this one, like it feels like I'm on the water slide the whole way down and I get shot out into that pool and everything makes sense around me and I love it.
I do have a really picky little thing to say though. A point of view issue. We don't know who Erika is, but she's telling Erika a lot about her life. Mm-hmm. That if they're really close friends, Erika would know. So it reads like it's to people who don't know her, even though it is a letter to Erika. So I want you to fix that for me. Please fix that for me. But I did have a point of view issue. Even I like being told the story to me. You know what I mean? But is it does she not know? Does Erika not know much about her? You feel me?
Yeah, I do feel you. I actually do feel you. But I can suspend my disbelief a little bit, right? Like I can like give myself into the fiction of the moment, like or the structure of the moment, right? The occasion is this letter to Erika that allows for all this stuff to come in. And if I know we're not usually meant to be comparing poems to each other, right? But knowing that I don't know, like my girlfriend might be pretty ambivalent and caught up in the distinction between mustard and I don't know, sun yellow. That person might not pay a whole lot of attention to the details of the stories in a relationship. So maybe the retelling is part of what they do. I don't know.
I mean, I know, so I don't know if I'm like allowed to like say like in our new critical scene or if I'll ruin things.
Well, actually, let's go meta on that moment right now, right? So as an editor, right, do you want to say something about how these poems got to us?
Yeah, I mean, I asked Hillary for them. Hillary's a friend of mine, and I was like, these poems are great. Please send them to us. Mm-hmm. Let us talk about them on the slush pile. Listen to the slush pile, and then let us talk about them. But Erika is. Do you want me to say who Erika is?
I don't think I personally don't. I think
okay,
that's really not right because no reader would know. Period. Right?
But if you do know who Erika. If you do know who Erika is, there are letters to Hillary. They match. There are poems. They've been writing poems back and forth to each other as letter poems.
And I just wanted to assure Slushies as well that 99% of what we talk about on here is stuff that does just come in through the transom. We don't solicit very often.
This was an unusual solicitation.
Yeah, but great. You know what? It's worth like just coming to the end of that thought too. Like even the most senior editors among us, when we solicit, we don't promise publication. That's part of it. It's like the solicitation is really like you individual editor dig this work, you want to bring it to the group and the group is going to talk about it. So it still has that element of risk, not a guarantee.
Oh, and we've had many times where, particularly after readings, where we've asked people for things after readings, where we've been really impressed, or an individual editor has been really impressed. And then when we discuss them at the next meeting, we're all like, oh, I guess it was the way they read them. Because now we're not voting for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I always say I got to bring them back to the group. I mean, this group, they're animals.
But I mean, outside of who real Erika is, I like the sort of this idea of kind of talking to this friend in their head and kind of filling her in on all these gaps.
Yeah.
You know, that there's kind of like this ongoing person who's not with you, but that you're kind of always sort of addressing as someone who kind of like is the repository of your thought process. It is not, it kind of externalizes your internal monologue. And I really liked that.
That's interesting. Well, again, I think I really liked reading it because it both like, it's propulsive. Like I wanted to read it fast, but it was also forcing me to slow down because there was no way I was going to read that fast. You know what I mean? In order to do it justice, because of the cascade, because of that water slide feel, syntactically.
Addison, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm not hearing enough of your voice today. You have any thoughts? You can be Addison about it. Just say no. You have any thoughts?
When you had said, I don't know why, well, when you basically said something like, I don't know why this person's sharing this information to this person in this letter, I started reading from backwards, reading it from the very end to the beginning, trying to figure that out, like trying to answer that question for myself. Didn't get there. And
interesting.
Yeah. I don't feel it too much.
Well, see, also we had sex on a rooftop in Queens. So
I didn't, that was one place that I got really confused, because if you try to follow this thought, it might be the same man that she lost babies with who was at the same time checking into Blue Ridge Behavioral. Like
Right. Who is the we? Is it Erika and the speaker or the miscarriage man?
I think it's the woman that she went to the wedding with that no one was shocked that she was in a couple with.
Where did I get lost there? Oh,
right. It's definitely not the man.
Yeah, I was surprised that nobody said anything about our hands or assumed we were
I
best friends.
The before in that sentence, that these are all.
Yeah. And the we is not Erika.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I know it's not, but like that's not necessarily in the poem. But I think it's not in the poem. Because I think Erika's too far away. I mean, I think that like whether or not
the we must be my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'm back.
I also liked the sort of the contrast between the urban and the rural, and the kind of like queer urban space and the straight rural space. But then it turns out that like the rural space is unexpectedly accepting later in time.
The sound of thinking.
Samantha?
I really like anytime there are like New York landmarks in a poem, because I'm not in New York right now. So I think that like always makes me feel good. I feel like I had the same question as Kathy in the beginning, and also because this poet seems like to have such a pulse on like how people speak and interact now. And a letter is such like an intimate thing to mail and send. And so like to have someone's address that you're sending it, but I feel like the ear of this or Erika doesn't seem to know her really well does trip me up a little bit. And I wonder, like, you know, with the long view of things, like that could be interesting if, like you said, it's like a back and forth, right? Like I love reading like writerly correspondence. It's like years and years later. but like on its own, I'm not sure if I get enough pleasure from it, though I'd like to read more of them now.
Yeah, I like the voice.
I really like that reading, Samantha, right? That they're like I that the poem would probably feel amplified in the context of the other letters as a standalone, right? It's trying to do a really heavy lift on its own. Interesting.
Do we want to vote and get on to the third poem, or do we want to keep talking about this one?
I think we should vote.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's in.
Oh. Well done. Congratulations.
Double Hillarys. All right.
All right.
Double Hillary. Can I volunteer Addison to read the next
Yes.
One? Oh, Addison. Did you hear his voice?
You gotta lie down on that voice and take a little nap.
And Marion wants to.
Or something.
Marion, weren't you bathing in it before?
We'll bet. Wait, Addison's voice or the sun's?
Sure, Addison.
I'm sorry, what? You all must have been on mute.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, it's the longest one, but you got it.
Did you Google that or shake a magic 8-ball? Emily, there aren't a lot of feelings I feel that I don't Google to understand what they are or try to search for self-validation or even just random thoughts. Once I was in Beijing and kept trying to Google things, but it's blocked in China. By the way, Baidu is a terrible search engine. I don't know what it's good for. Maybe if I spoke better Mandarin, it would be useful. But for now, I will stick to Silicon Valley and Sundar Pichai. I can tell you that my recent search history includes: where should I move? Will Biden win Florida? Strategies for increasing net worth through mutual funds. Are my itchy eyes a COVID symptom? Is Janelle Monáe a lesbian? Drunk dialed the girl I'm dating. Things to know before dating a lawyer. What does love feel like? How soon is too soon to fall in love? Scientific signs you're falling in love. Am I falling in love? I can tell you that I'm not sure where to move and that Biden will most likely not win Florida, despite Michael Bloomberg's billion-dollar push to reverse felon voting disenfranchisement. And I won't bore you with that, with what I learned about mutual funds, though you're right. It is a steady way to build wealth. And no, itchy eyes are not a COVID symptom, but Janelle Monáe is a lesbian, I think, or at least bisexual. And I found out nothing about drunk dialing a crush other than not to. Oops. Turns out there's this chemical called phenylphthalamine, and it's the same chemical you find in chocolate, which is why you can't just have one piece and be satisfied, which is why I can't text you once and be satisfied, or call you once and be satisfied. I want to keep texting and keep calling for however long you keep responding. It's the chemical in your brain releases when you're falling in love, and I probably didn't need Google to tell me that I was, or that I think you are too. And when I told my friend, she said, "Did you Google that or shake a magic 8-ball?" And if I had, I would have shaken it hoping that it said yes.
Well read, Addison.
Sorry, that was a very tricky one.
Gorgeous, yeah.
Phenylphthalamine.
What?
So I guess Hillary likes addressing individuals.
Yeah.
Emily, there aren't a lot of feelings, I feel.
Well, and I think this one, it's sort of much more in the poem that Emily is a new girlfriend that she is feeling very excited about and cautious because it's happening so fast.
Well, it's funny. Like, I want to read the poem almost like it has a sonnet structure, right? In a way, it's got this like premise and then this cascade of questions, right? And then the volta, the turn is, I can tell you, right? And then you get this like cascade of answers, that winds up with the 8-ball. So like I love the structure of it. I will say that. But I also feel like the title and the punchline are like so on point. There's no surprise. Like where we get is not surprising, right? Which is a surprise for a poem that's doing this kind of like witty banter, right? Like, or aiming at witty banter, and like getting the reader involved in the exchange of these ideas and listening to this monologue. Like the place that it gets didn't get very far from where it started.
I really like it from that turn to the phenylphthaleamine. Like I just find that really sweet. It's because the syntax begins to like cut against the line break in this really sort of like I thought it was really sweet that there's this chemical phenylphthaleamine. That's the same chemical you find in chocolate, which is why you can't just have one piece and be satisfied, which is why I can't text you once and be satisfied or call you once and be satisfied and want to keep texting you. That was very sweet. I like that part.
But do you think this part is too sweet?
No, I don't.
Wait, this part. Chemical your brain releases when you're falling in love, and I probably didn't need Google to tell me that I was, or that I think you are too.
That feels like a teen movie line.
Yeah, that was a little overly sweet for me.
When I was reading it the first time, I didn't really care though. So.
I like that it gets you to the magic 8-ball at the end.
I will say though, on that note too, Jason, right? Like I sound like I'm full of contradictions here, but it is really sweet that it ends with a yes, that it's a magic 8-ball says a yes. Like how sweet, right? That is sweet. Yeah. You know.
She took Molly in another poem. Yes.
I really sorry. I had a delay. Sorry. It was like my worst fear, like this double Dutch lifestyle of like Zoom talking, the jumping in. I really like the first part of this. I like those first 2 lines to me are just so interesting. I'm actually like I find less pleasure though in like the experience of Googling and then the answers. And maybe that's because it doesn't like feel like, I feel like it's working because they're like random, and then they're random Googles, but they like cascade in a way that like I understand and it makes sense. But like it's just such a familiar like act, I guess maybe even of my own life all the time, that its randomness and the like way it works out doesn't like, I guess, bring me pleasure. I don't know. And I feel like, but I do love like the kind of very wise sort of acknowledgement of how like Google works in those first lines. I really like that. And I like the address.
I feel like I keep being the mean one, but the recent search history, I'm not a fan. Just period. I feel like I've seen that as a device before. And then again, maybe, I don't know, I'm in some kind of mood or what it is, but all that, what does love feel like? How soon is it to fall in love? Like, it's, to me, that's a bit, well, it's redundant to itself, and it's a bit cheeseball. You know, and the device of my Google searches is a little, and then we have to hear it again. Then she, you know, then she goes through all the responses.
Well, I did like how, as Addison was reading the poem, how the sort of natural upspeak he adopted, and I'm not sure what happens in the lines to create that, right? But it's interesting that you could hear it, right? But for now, I will stick to Silicon Valley and Sundar Pichai. Like there's something in the rhythm, the prosody that wants it almost upspeaky. Right. So I guess I think that's the thing I'm noticing with this poet's work. It feels so radically contemporary, right? And almost casual. And then when you look at the way the sentences are sort of sitting on the page, there's such a sort of beautiful improvisational quality to them that reflects like a pretty wicked sense of craft, right? That said, though, I think the poem's a little long, right? And it's again, it's working towards that cascade into the declaration of love and the hope, right, that the recipient is going to respond accordingly is a very sweet motive for a poem.
And I like the ending with the magic 8-ball, that all the technology hasn't actually made us any more smart or rigorous. It's still just, trying to get to the answer that you want and sort of like appealing to some sort of pattern recognition in a random universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, people still like magic 8-balls.
Yeah.
I bet you there's online apps that are magic 8-balls, I'm sure.
Do you want to ask one? Do you want to? I'll find an app and you can come up with a question. After we vote, we can start asking the electronic magic 8-ball questions.
We have a faulty magic 8-ball in my house that only says maybe. And I just love it. Like anytime someone when I'm planning for people to come over again, I'm like going to use it on them.
Well, listen, I don't know, I don't mean to make too much of this, the call and response, that the title and the payoff at the end are the same. It bugs me, right? But if it didn't bug anybody else, then we can let it go. Otherwise, then maybe it's as easy a tweak as maybe the title is just called Magic 8-Ball, right? Or maybe putting the title in quotes or something. I don't know. It just feels a little bit.
That when you kind of get back to when you get to the line that began the poem, you know that you're coming out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's almost an opportunity here. I think that you speak of the contemporariness of this, Marion, and I agree with you. But like Kathy said about the device of going through someone's search engine, is I've seen that before too. But I think that where it can be new is kind of how we're figuring out that everyone's getting different results and stuff. And then I keep looking at the Baidu, the Chinese search engine, and this I don't know what it's good for. And I'm wondering if there's something in here that I'm missing, because of course Baidu operates just like Google, but if you can't read it, you're not going to get your answers. So I'm wondering if I wanted to sit with this a little bit more and try to see if it's saying something about these searches being very particular to the person, despite kind of the genericness of the answers that are being laid out here. But I don't have an answer for that. I'm just still thinking about that.
All right. Well, what do you say? Do you feel like we're ready to vote on this poem? We're at the end of our allotted time. So it might be a great moment to begin. Okay. Someone call it.
One of my thumbs is for Addison. 1, 2, 3, vote. Okay. So it's not in, but we still took 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3 is great. And I found the Magic 8-Ball app. And while we were talking, I silently asked the Magic 8-Ball if the poem was going to be taken. And it responded my source.
It responded what?
My sources say no.
Oh wow. See, look at that, Jason.
I have doubted the Magic. Do you want to ask it another question? Do you want to ask the?
No, but all I was going to say is I looked too. I went to the app store and there are millions. There were so many. I didn't download any of them, but there are many, many Magic 8-Ball apps.
Well, you're always welcome to ask mine as well, in case you don't want an answer.
I love that you have it set to maybe.
Well, it's like Kathy's worst nightmare. like an editor that won't vote up or down, an editor who just says thumb sideways over and over again, thumb sideways.
Yep. That's so funny. Well, here we are at the end of the episode. Thanks so much to Hillary Adler and the wonderful directions that your poems pulled us in, such that we're now profound fans of the Magic 8-Ball, which, science. So
yeah, so thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Slushies, for listening. Let us know how we're doing and keep reading. Woohoo!
Woo-hoo, woo-hoo,
Syntactical.
Yay.